Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking at a man whose dream is to go start a business where he makes the world's greatest chocolate and lives as a mysterious genius recluse hidden from the public eye. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who thought Willy Wonka was secretly a retirement planner.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but you want to know why.
Hit me. How'd
the
you get to
inspiration
this
on
one?
this one.
What's
First of
the
all, I
inspo?
feel like this is God that just gifts me with these. Okay, it's really is the Lord's work. But really,
That's
where
debatable.
okay, let's just keep it down. Where this actually comes from. So Garrett is a man of many opinions, and
That is true.
he's a man of many opinions, and so the
It's
good
not many things I don't have an opinion about.
that's 100% true, and like. That bothers some people. It doesn't bother me. I think it's hilarious. And another person that thinks it's hilarious is your wife. We enjoy your eccentricities. So sometimes Garrett will come out with stuff and you're like, why were you thinking about that? But then where this really benefits you is like, I'm over here pretty regularly. And Garrett will always have like these random coffee inventions. Like, oh, do you want to, is it a Bissonnet? What is the thing that?
Bisserin.
Yeah.
I didn't invent the Bisserin.
I know you didn't, but I never even heard of it. I still can't even say it, let alone remember the name of it. It sounds like something you take for a cough syrup. And so this
Definitely doesn't taste like cough syrup.
oh, it tastes glorious is what it tastes like. It's this coffee with chocolate. And so Garrett,
I'm surprised that Starbucks doesn't sell like a crap version of this. It wouldn't be made right, but I'm surprised they don't
I
sell
love that you just went ahead and aired your opinion. There you go, your opinion on Starbucks. But also, like, you made this amazing latte for me. That was, what was that? What was in that latte?
In the Bisserin or the
No,
latte?
the other one. You made some like
the latte?
organic oat milk, honey, like unicorn
No,
tier.
absolutely no oat milk. It was just espresso, organic whole milk, a little bit of vanilla extract, and some high quality honey.
Is that really all it was? It was just a honey latte?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Just very small doses of high quality ingredients.
I think I'm also revealing a lot about my own personal food preparation preferences, which are very low. So yeah, but anyways, the point is Garrett will just come up with these ridiculous things, and actually, dude can cook. That's something you don't really broadcast.
It's my wife and I's like shared. We enjoy like running together. We don't do a ton of lifting together. We enjoy running together and we enjoy cooking together.
Yeah,
and it's like we're not going out to eat. One of our favorite date nights is just to stay at home and find a new semi-difficult dish that we've never prepared before. And it's like an ongoing battle because we keep getting better at cooking. And we also have this standard for going out for date nights that I want to go somewhere that they cook better than I do.
yeah.
Right. If I can outcook the food that I'm like sitting down to eat, I enjoy, being served and all that, not having to do dishes. But if I'm going to go out and pay for food, we're not like amazing or anything, but we're good,
Dude,
So I have an expectation that
debatable, but that was where the intro came from, because we went down a rabbit hole here, but that was where the intro came from, is because I could see you being like, oh, I'm going to go invent the world's best chocolate, and like devoting all your efforts
what
to
we
it.
enjoy is like, for example, we had Bisserins at Italy. We're like, oh, I want to figure out how to make these at home. So that's what we enjoy doing, is we'll go out to eat. It's like, how do we make this at home?
Yeah, which I never asked that question, but I'm
All
just
right, moving on.
I gotta have some friends. Okay,
Moving on.
So yeah, there's 3.5 minutes. People will never get back, but now they know where the intro came from. Okay, so super exciting news in our world, G, and in the world of anybody who's listening to this, because you are part of our world. You may have noticed when you're looking at the thumbnail image on your podcast player of choice, or if you're looking at us on social media, something has changed. We have a different look. We have gone ahead and changed our colors, modified the logo a little bit. And that's not all. There's a reason for that.
This is something that Garrett had an opinion on.
Oh, shocker. Yeah, well, we could say that for everything. But we have launched our website, theimpossible.life. And more than that, the reason we've launched it, something we've been working on literally for months and months.
It's live now, so keep listening. But
now.
If you want to go there on your phone, you can.
You can, theimpossible.life. But what you will see when you get there is our mindset mastery. So what mindset mastery is it is a 12-month, I don't want to call it a program, because you don't have to get to the end and then leave. You can stay in if you want. But it is a series of 12 topics that we are going to be doing. It's like an online group coaching where we are going to have myself and Garrett lead you through applying some very specific topics for living the impossible life and really unleashing yourself. Is that fair, G?
Yeah, so over 12 months, we're going to cover 12 topics. Each month, we're going to cover a topic. And each week there's an hour of work.
Yes.
Right. So these are things that we're going to get to do together. And this is not like, changing the direction of the podcast or anything like that. This is something else that we wanted to add for those who have been asking for it, because we've had quite a few asking for it. What this will always be about, what the podcast will always be about, is continuing to share in this way of thinking that Nick and I are growing in together, becoming our best, living the impossible life. And that's what the podcast will always be about, is the impossible life. And it's about the podcast, which will always be free. However, we wanted to add something else because so many asked for it. And we've realized in really just this discovery and journey that we've been on for the last year and a half, that it does take a lot of work for these things. It does. And so you can learn how to work out by watching YouTubes for free. You can learn everything that we talk about by listening to the podcast. But if you join the Mindset Mastery program and you can go to the website and learn a little bit more about it, you get to do it with some other people. You get to do it in a more intense and directive way.
Yeah.
So.
And this is very much about the application of specific topics to your life, like the ones that we feel are really the game changers, like Garrett said, that we've discovered ourselves. We've talked about a lot of things. I think this is...
I would say also that it is... it's the nucleus of all of these things, right? Because we're at like 85 or 86 episodes now, and we're just going to continue to keep going.
Correct.
But what Mindset Mastery will always be, it's, that's 1 hour a week for all year long. And it's really just the 4 hours per week. So over 48 hours... Yeah. Over 48 hours throughout a year, we're going to do give you the work to do, give you the assignments, give you the very dialed in specific teachings and trainings that you can learn everything within a year that we try to teach and talk about here.
And the way we're going to do that, so you'll have a 1 hour call. It's a group coaching call with Garrett and myself per month, where we will go over the application.
Those are going to be fun.
They are going to be fun. We're also going to have some Q&A sessions in there.
Yeah.
Maybe Garrett will punch me a few times. It should be fun. But then you'll go away. You'll have an hour of work per week to do on your own. And it'll be very much based around the topic so that you can get an assessment of where you're at, get a vision of like a level set of where you want to be, and then also have a test to actually work out the application and see where you have holes in your game. So we're not just doing this in the sense it's like, hey, join us for a call. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be very hands-on, and the goal more than anything is to see people grow and to truly be unleashed.
I'm actually really excited about that, and I want to get past this and get onto the episode, but I'll just say this really quick. I'm really excited about that part where there is an opportunity for you to assess yourself and take some questions, and there's specific customized feedback to you based on this topic, being in this place where you're at right now. These are the things that you need to go do.
Yeah, it's going to be great. What I would say, man, is for those of you who have listened, you may have heard a difference. If you know me, you've seen my life grow massively. What I would say, the nucleus of this podcast was just, and I've talked about it before on here, but in Garrett, I saw something that in him that I've not seen in anybody else. And it was truly a person who lives free from fear, who's unleashed, and who has an incredible sense of purpose that is going about, like, there's never a situation where I see Garrett go like, oh, I hope this happens. It's very much a place of like, I'm going to say it's a place of command. It's a place of truly feeling powerful that you can make things happen. It's ruling like the way God made us. It's living with dominion. And you embody that. And I've grown so much in that, man. I feel like I live unleashed now. I'm free from fear. I have an incredible sense of purpose in my life, and I'm grateful to you for that. I've also put in a lot of work on my own.
And that's what it is. You have to put in the work, but Mindset Mastery is about giving you the mindset required and the tools to go out and accomplish those things.
What we've done is taken a lot of what I've done on my own and done the collective conversations we've had that didn't end up on the podcast, just lots of things that we've worked out.
You've really been the first person to go through the program.
That's what I'm saying. I am like that's why I call myself the first listener. And the hope of this is that we can create that same breakthrough and that same realization of who you really are and that unleashed feeling. I'm telling you, there is nothing like waking up with a sense of purpose every single day and living without fear and being like, wherever I go, that like I'm going to rule, I'm going to reign, I'm going to make it happen. Like, let's go. And having that sense of knowing God is with you, man, it's incredible. So we're going to move on. Today's episode, guys, is Pillars of the Impossible Life. 5 questions every person is answering.
And what are pillars? Pillars are literally what you're built on, right?
Yes.
It is the foundation. And so what we're going to talk about today, these are topics that we've discussed before, but we want to establish that, like, this is the foundation of what the impossible life is.
Yes.
We're also going to touch on some of these topics, even though we've talked about them many times here before. We're going to touch on them in a different way, and it's always a energizing and growth-filled conversation when we talk about these topics. But pillars are the things that are underneath the foundation, right? Mm-hmm. Or they're on top. They hold up what it is that you're about. They hold up you have pillars of your life. You have pillars of your business. These are the pillars of the Impossible Life podcast. Pillars are like, in a house, here in Texas where the ground moves a bunch, we have different type of foundation. We have slabs, but in a lot of the world, you have homes built on pier and beam, right? And if my house is crooked, I'm not going to look at the walls. If my house is crooked, I'm not going to, what's wrong with the floors? You get down underneath the house and you look at the piers, you look at the pillars, and because these are the things that hold something and it's an established place. And a lot of people don't know what their pillars are. They live by default pillars in their life. But when you know what your pillars are, you can assess the strength of your foundation, which you can assess, okay, this is how my life is going to look the way that I want it to look like. If I want my house to be 20 years from now, I want it to still be level.
Yeah.
And that's based upon, I want it to still be the way that I want it to be right now, right? But in the future, and it's going to continue to be this way as long as my pillars are healthy.
Yes.
So when you know what your pillars are, you can understand them, you can assess the health of them, and you can know how strong you really are.
Right. And it's obvious with your house, but people don't know that they have these with their life. And we're going to go at what a default, we're going to have a look at what default pillars are.
Yeah, everyone has pillars for their life.
But they won't necessarily know them. We have defined ours very clearly, and we're going to talk about default. Before we do, though, we talked about a lot of things that have changed with like the colors, the logo, all the fun stuff, the website launching. We've also changed our about, and if you ever do read what the purpose of the podcast is on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever it is you listen on.
I wouldn't even say we've changed. We've just enhanced.
We've enhanced it.
We've pulled out more of what it is.
And this is really why we exist. And the reason I'm reading this to you is because this will all make sense in line with the pillars. So we've written this, and you can read it anytime you want. The Impossible Life podcast exists to unleash men and women to live fearless lives full of purpose as God made them to be. Bold, courageous people that know they are made to be great, serve and lead, do whatever it takes, and change the world. We're going to guide your thinking and uncover all that God has for us and realize that with God, nothing is impossible.
That's right.
Luke 137 is the scripture that drove the name of this podcast. We've never said that publicly, but not because we were trying to hide it, but we just it's never come up. But that is truly what it is. So when we're talking about the impossible life, it's a play because really with God, nothing's impossible.
That's right.
And that's the whole point. It's only the impossible life if you try and do it without God. So let's get into the pillars there, G. Default pillars. So here we go. My default pillar, I was in this for a very terrible decade. The default pillars and foundations for people is your pillar is your feelings.
Yeah.
And
it's what your life stands on.
Yes.
If I feel good, my life's good.
Oh, it's great.
If I feel bad, my life's bad.
It's awful, G. And I am up and down.
Everyone's going to know it.
Yeah, exactly. My house would be like straight one day and, like collapse the next day if this was an actual house. And the question that those feelings are always going to be tinged and influenced by the values. And the values that you have by default are worldly values of power, pleasure, and possessions.
Yeah.
So you're always weighing yourself up. Like your question is, well, what makes me happy? Well, I need some pleasure in my life. That comes in a variety of forms. A lot of times people choose very short-term ones, which is why they end up going up and down and all around. And then it's like, well, possessions, power. That's great. And then you start comparing yourself to other people. So your what makes me happy question is like a different answer any given day of the week. And you're all over the place.
And all those things are about you.
Yeah, big time.
And the Bible talks about this as the Bible calls it the house built on the sand.
Yes.
Right. It's built on something that's constantly changing. Like sand is constantly shifting and moving just like your feelings are. Or you can build your life, you can build your house, you can build your family, you can build your business, you can build everything about you on the rock, which the rock is Christ. The rock is the Word of God. And the things that we talk about on this podcast and what our pillars are, they're all biblically based, and it's just the unique identifiers of who the impossible life is. And these are also things in our life that we know are not going to change.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, no one would say that is their foundation, like their feelings, but that really is. I mean, if you look at pop psychology, it's like just find what makes you happy, man.
Yeah.
Like that's really like follow your heart, dude. That makes me want to vomit, truthfully, like that, like just follow your heart advice. Anyways, I could go down a road there. So what are the pillars that we're saying that are the impossible life? And the fun thing about this was one of the prompts was I said, gee, if we could invent like an avatar, like a person from nothing and say they are being built to live the impossible life, like what would we build into them?
Yeah.
And this is the question that we answered. And we also looked at ourselves because realistically, when we're talking about this, like we are aiming to live the impossible life. Like this is not something that's like a podcast thing that we just talk about.
This isn't
life.
some media hobby. This
Correct.
isn't just, content we're trying to put on the internet. This is what our lives are about.
Yeah. So shocker for number one, not a shocker at all. You will have heard all of these guys. Purpose. Very first thing. And we define purpose as the reason you were created.
That's why God has a plan for your life.
Yes.
Right? Your life has a purpose. The fact that you are still breathing, The fact that you're still breathing, you're listening to this podcast, your heart is beating, means God has a plan for your life. That's the evidence of your breath. And what we know is that you have God in your life. God made you for a reason. You have a purpose, and you need to walk that purpose out. Your purpose is not you.
Yes.
You play a part of a much broader story. And I was telling Nick, your purpose is a lot like when you're playing an RPG video game, where
that's role-playing game for those of you non-gamers. Yeah. Sorry, just in case.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I'm thinking about my dad, who's like, what's an RPG?
What's an RPG?
I saw that's like an explosive.
Rocket-propelled grenade?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Those are fun video games.
Yeah.
They're fun in real life, too. Anyways, life is like a role-playing game, where when you first start, you have an idea of the broader, you know what the game's about, and you start with some very basic tools, and then you're just going to discover the rest of the journey. And so our lives, like, we know we play a part of a much broader story. We play a part of God's story, but we're understanding what is my role in this. And that's what I want to do so badly, is I want to play my role. I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. I'm not trying to make up some character or do what's going to make me feel good. What I want to do is play my part very well, which all comes back to what we've talked about many times on this podcast, which is stewardship, which is I want to die in here. Well done, good and faithful servant, right? That's what we want to hear at the end of our life. And you're going to hear that from playing your role, which is your purpose. God made you for a reason. You were put on this earth for a very specific reason. And through our life, we're going to discover more of what that purpose is, and then to walk in it and to live it.
Yes. And if you don't have that sense of purpose, life feels like drudgery. It feels like Groundhog Day. It's all the things that you just wake up and you're like, oh, why am I doing
You're
this?
asking the question, what is my purpose? Why am I here? This doesn't even matter. I think it is the most, there's some very sad and evil and disgusting things in the world. But I think one of the most awful things that anyone can experience is when they come to a place in life where they feel like nothing matters.
Yes.
I think that is as sad as any of the most wicked and evil things that happen on the earth, is when someone gets to a place in their life that the enemy has convinced them that their life doesn't matter, that there's no reason that you should continue to live.
Contrast that with something that we text each other a lot, and we've talked about and done an episode on, where the mindset of today matters. When you really feel like every single day has an incredible sense of purpose and really is important, man, like you said, you never overslept past your alarm when you were on mission as a SEAL.
Absolutely. I talked about this a couple weekends ago. I just used it as an example. On a Saturday morning, I talked about the difference between suicide and sacrifice. In both situations, someone is choosing to end their life, right? Like, I'm choosing to give my life up, right? And suicide, you're choosing to give your life up because nothing matters,
yes,
right? But in sacrifice, you're choosing to give your life up because there's something that's even more important than who you are. And suicide has a very awful and sad tone to it, versus sacrifice is it's sad when someone dies, but at the same time, what they do is so glorious and meaningful when they give their, you think about a father or a mother like running into a burning building to save their child, or, pushing them out of the way as a car is coming, any of those types of examples. And it's like, man, how much love did that person have? Right. And how much purpose did that person have? Versus when someone kills themselves, it's like, it's very sad because they missed their purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there was something that they were born for, but they chose to not find it.
Yeah.
Right. And so both of these two things, it's the same act, but for a different reason, for a different purpose.
Good. Yeah. And if you want to listen more about purpose, you could go to episode 68 or episode 67, which was the Joe Musselman episode. Both those have a lot.
I would do both of those back.
I would too. And developing that sense of purpose is your responsibility, and it is powerful. So for living the impossible life. Number 2 is beliefs. And for beliefs, we sum those up in
beliefs are those things that you know are true, but you can't prove. Right. And so let me talk about that for a second. What is to prove something? To prove something, scientifically, that it's demonstratable, verifiable, you can show it to someone over and over and over again. And so beliefs are the things that you know are true. No one can tell you otherwise. No one can change your mind on it. I know this is true, but I can't necessarily prove it to you. Right. And this is, for example, for Nick and for I, that is my belief in God. Right. I know without a shadow of a doubt, 100%. Who God is, who my Father in heaven is, how the earth was created. I know these things, right? But I can't prove them to you, right? And so these truths have become more evident. It's on top of faith, and faith is some of its own evidence, right, for who God is in my life. But I have all of this evidence. It's not that you don't have any evidence, right? Just like in a court case, you present evidence. These are things that lead to a conclusion, right? But you have to, at the end of the day, it's rare in a court case that it's down to like it becomes 100% proof. Like we can say there is no doubt, right? They try to eliminate doubt. They try to minimize doubt, and they present as much evidence as possible.
Yeah.
But to prove something, like the only way to like prove something in a court case is like we have video of this person. We know that the video is real. We have, multiple verified accounts. We can see that it's like there's no way that we could disprove it.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Right. Versus evidence is, well, we know they were in this place. We can see that these things happen. Right. And that's, again, not to go too far down understanding what proof is, but beliefs are the things that we know are true but can't prove. And what's so powerful is what the beliefs that you have in your life are.
Yeah.
Right? The things that you believe about yourself, the things that you believe about life, the things that you believe about the world have a massive impact. Just like in a court case, like what you choose to believe about a situation, is this person guilty or are they not guilty? It's a massive impact on their future. What you believe about your life based upon the evidence that you see has a massive impact on your future. With our first one, purpose, right? Like this is God has a plan for your life. And with beliefs, there's something that my parents said to me over and over as a child. They would tell me all the time that God has a plan for your life. They would pray for me. And then they would say this, that you can have anything you want in life as long as you're willing to pay the price for it, right? Not that you can have whatever you want, but you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay the price for it. And I heard this so much, and I saw evidence of it in my life that I believed it. And when you have, for me, and this is something I like to share with as many people as I can as possible, that when you have that belief that you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay the price for it, and you have purpose, that God has a plan for your life, I call that the infinite potential unlock. Because once you understand these things, when you have purpose, that you have potential, you are capable to go out and do whatever it is that you are called on the earth to do. And that is just one example of how powerful beliefs are in your life. What are the things that you believe about yourself? What are the things that you believe about God?
Yeah.
What are the things that you believe about the world? And beliefs are those things that you know are true but can't prove.
Yeah, and your beliefs, here's how they relate to the impossible life if you're not connecting the dots. Your beliefs will either be limiting or empowering. Yeah. And people will not ask the question about like, first of all, they won't ask them like, hey, what do I actually believe about this? But Garrett brought up one about God. If you believe that God is real and made you for a purpose, how much does that empower you to realize I got stuff to do? Like things matter. I can't just go about my business, just with my head down, because there is I was made for a very specific reason. Like Pastor Keith always says, he says, you've got you got a fingerprint that only you have to leave an impression on the earth that only you can leave. And I love that quote because it's so true. God made you, and there's only one of you. So there's something very specific that only you can do that God's made you. How empowering is that? As opposed to, well, life's crap and then you die. All right, like my life doesn't mean anything.
Nihilistic belief that nothing matters.
Yeah, and so that's a very obvious example that we're giving. But when you start to break down all your beliefs, that's one of the things that you've heard me talk about before about assigning meaning to past experiences. It's like if it's not serving you, if it's not empowering you, you need to really address that because your beliefs matter. So if you want some more information on beliefs, we were talking about this. Episode 3 was like a lifetime ago. We may have to revisit beliefs.
3, when Nick pulled that up, we were looking at the episode numbers for all these things. Like, whoa, it's episode 3. Gosh,
yeah. Dude, I always feel Star Wars whenever we talk about.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Exactly. Yeah, episode 3, man. That was when we were still downstairs and before your office even had cabinets, man. That was a long time ago. All right, number 3 pillar for us. We did a 4-part series on it. Leadership. And leadership brings order. That is really what leadership does. It brings order. The leadership thought process is do as I do, and it's bringing order to whatever situation you go into. If you look at God's creation of the earth, if you look at the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon, the first thing that they do is it's really just about bringing order from chaos.
Yeah, God creates. If you look at the way that he created the world, God creates, and then he brings order. Yeah. And he creates, and then he brings order. He assigns purpose. He assigns mission. He separates this from that. God brings order. It's part of his divine structure is that it's an ordered universe. We're not a disordered universe. We're an ordered universe, right? We live in a world where if you sow seed, you'll reap a harvest. It's evidence of order, right? And so order is order through leadership is one of the core pillars of what the impossible life is about.
Yeah. If you're a person that's living the impossible life with an incredible sense of purpose, identifying beliefs that empower you with the infinite potential unlock, you're going to be somebody that walks into any environment that you go into. I mean, we did 4-part series that started in episode 69.
Lead yourself. That's where it starts.
Lead yourself. Then lead your marriage. Then lead your family, then lead others. But in every room, be the leader, be the person that brings order. When you put it that way, it's very simple, because when you get things in order, man, things flow.
I'll say this about leadership too, is when you begin to, everyone's a leader because everyone leads themselves.
Correct.
But then as soon as you begin to lead any other person, whether it's your wife, or your husband, or whether it's, just any other person, as soon as you begin to lead someone else, it changes you.
Yeah.
Right. You begin, and hopefully in the right way. If you are leading from a Christ-centered place, this leadership will form you and shape you into the best version of yourself, because you realize that you're responsible for more than just your own life. Like, man, my actions have an impact, not just on me, but on many others. I learned so many painful, and I won't go into the long stories, but some painful lessons on leadership in SEAL training about how my actions do not just impact me, right? That my actions impact other people. So when you understand that you, as a leader, whoever you're leading in your life, your spouse, anybody, that your actions have a massive impact on them, and you realize that your life is not about you, then you're going to begin to enhance and grow what leadership is in your life, so that you can have as much impact in a positive way on other people, instead of being, negative in leadership, and by not leading yourself, you're having the wrong impact on people. You're hurting people that you didn't realize.
Yeah, I think you said it. You said that leadership of others is your anvil for your next level, was the way that you'd phrased it recently. And I thought that was a really good way of phrasing it.
It's leadership is weight in my life. And so like you go to level 1 of leadership and you get level 1 weights, and those are hard at first. And then you get stronger and you grow to level 2, and it's just over and over and over again. And the more leadership capacity you have, the more is assigned to you. And then you grow from that. And it's just an amazing perpetual growth cycle through leadership.
Yeah. No.
If you'll be faithful with what's been given to you, if you'll not complain and cry about the weight of leadership, but look at it as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, for sure. We could go into more of that, but fortunately we already did it in 4 episodes. So start on episode 69, listen to all 4 parts. Number 4 pillar, I can't believe it, G. We've never talked about this before on this podcast. Oh, wait, we did just last week. Discipline, okay? And as my friend Garrett Unklebach says, confidence is knowing you can do what you say. Discipline is actually doing it. So discipline is doing what you say you will. What a simple definition, Garrett. Isn't that wonderful? Just do what you say.
Every time Nick quotes me to me, he like has this, he does the sound effect, but he also has like this very specific look.
I love it. Yeah. It's like the look you give me every time you roast me, which is, often. So, yeah.
But discipline is so powerful, and discipline is also reflective of obedience. I'll talk about obedience here in a second, but discipline is, do you obey yourself? Right? I've given myself commands. I told myself to wake up. I told myself to do this work. I told myself to go here. I told myself this. Did you listen to yourself? Right? And you should consider that and think about that. Like, it's frustrating if you give someone instruction who's under your charge and they don't listen to you. Well, you're under your charge, right? Like, you're under your own leadership, and you tell yourself to do things and you don't do it. How frustrating is that? If you can't even tell yourself what to do and you do it, why should anyone listen to you? You don't even listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Discipline is so powerful because it reflects obedience. In the Bible, there's a man called Abraham, right? He's who God says is the father of many nations. He's who God starts with when he begins the journey of the Israelites. And at this point, on the earth, but when God's on the earth with Abraham, it's just Noah's descendants on the earth. And it's been hundreds of years. God hasn't done anything. God's not speaking to anybody. And God chooses a man named Abraham. And you wonder, okay, God could use anybody in the earth. He could pick anybody on the earth. Is he going to pick a king? Is he going to pick someone who's really wealthy? Is he going to pick someone who's really powerful? Well, why wouldn't God start with someone who already has hundreds of children and lots of sons, and already has this great tribe formed that he could work with? No, God chooses a man named Abraham. And why did God choose Abraham? God chose Abraham. It's reflective in his life, from the way his journey starts to what happens with him and his son Isaac. When God gives instruction to Abraham, the next verse typically says, so he went, right? Abraham was obedient. And so God says, I'm going to pick him. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to work with who's my first team player? Who's my first draft pick?
Yeah.
I'm going to pick a guy who can follow instructions. Yep. I'm going to pick a guy who, when I tell him to do something, he just says, Roger that. He just says, yes, sir. Abraham was obedient. That's why obedience is reflective of our relationship with God, which we need to be that way with ourselves. You need to be disciplined. You need to be able to speak to yourself. What if this was your life? What if, I'm talking to somebody named James out there. What if James says, James, assigned himself to get up at 5 a.m, and so he did. Right? Like, what if that's your life and puts your name there instead of James, right? That's what it means to be disciplined. What if your life was like that?
Yeah.
I told myself to do this, and so I did.
Yeah.
Right? That is the power of discipline. And so many people, they break down at that point. I gave myself instructions, but I couldn't do it.
And here's the thing. So Garrett's example of waking up at 5 a.m., you're like, oh, yeah, I can't wake up at 5 a.m. But the more I go on, the more I really feel like discipline is the magic ingredient in literally everything. It is the foundational element of all growth, in my opinion. Look at what we talked about.
Discipline hurts, but so being undisciplined
hurts worse.
Yeah. Right? Like, you have to change. We talked about this before. It was on the last episode or 2 episodes back when I was talking about the attitude of like breathing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like, you got like, don't have that. Like, oh man, breathing is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't think, oh, discipline is hard. Like, oh man, this is great. I have command of myself.
Yes.
I have control of myself.
Yes.
What a wonderful and refreshing feeling. Man, this workout hurts so bad, and I told myself to do it. And I did it.
Well, you're saying workouts, but we just covered purpose, beliefs, and leadership as the first 3 pillars, and discipline as the 4th. Well, in order to have a great sense of purpose, G, let's ask yourself the question: is there ever a time when you're going to feel like, oh man, this isn't going the way I thought, or I don't feel this sense of purpose? Yes, but you know what can keep you on track? A sense of discipline. Wait a minute, I've written down this sense of purpose for exactly this scenario. Oh wait, my beliefs aren't really serving me here. You know what? I'm not going to have a negative attitude anymore. I'm going to eliminate certain thought processes straight away. If you don't have discipline, you'll fall right back into that. And that's really what beliefs are, is starting to generate your thought processes. So discipline will help you there. Oh, leadership. Well, that's a discipline to walk into every room and ask, what does the room need, right? And you could go over and over and over again. Anything that you want to grow in your life is going to require you to do it repetitively. That's one of the principles of growth: is repetition, consistency, and time. Those are 3 principles.
Think about trying to grow anything. Like, think about trying to grow a farm. Think about trying to grow a business. And you had employees that you told them to do something, they just go, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. Right? Like, your business is going to fail. Your farm is going to fail. Whatever it is, it's going to fail. Like, your SEAL team is going to fail. If you give instruction to your teammates, they're like, maybe.
Yeah.
50-50. We'll see. Flip a coin. You know, if you are that way with yourself, like, am I going to get up tomorrow on time? Maybe. Am I going to do what I said? Maybe. You're not going to get very far.
Yeah. It's an incredibly empowering thing to be disciplined. Okay. And if you want an episode on that, episode 33 is there for you. Garrett gave me he did the solid of finally saying, hey, you should probably look these episodes up in advance rather than waiting until we're on the podcast.
It only took 85 episodes for Nick not to figure it out, but for me to finally just say, hey, Nick, why don't you, work in advance here?
Right. So my takeaway is that Garrett's finally starting to, think of other people rather than just put me on the spot. So great job.
I was waiting for you to figure it out. You didn't. So I helped you.
This is actually what goes on. Anyways, pillar number 5 is perspective. And perspective is your filter for how you see the world.
Yeah.
We have done a great episode on that. It was episode 23. It's our Jordan episode. And perspective.
Such a great episode to be the Jordan episode.
It really is, because perspective really is a game changer, just like MJ was.
Well, I mean, and let's just talk about him for a second. Cut from his high school team.
Yep.
And he's got his coach. He's got people in his life saying like, oh man, we just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jordan, and this is also resiliency, which is built upon perspective. Michael Jordan said, no, I'm going to be the greatest player of all time.
Yep.
He saw it before anyone else did. He knew who he was, and he made it happen. A perspective is, and this goes along with beliefs. It's such an important influence on so many things that we talk about here. Perspective is, you look at a set of evidence. Perspective is, you look at a situation, and there's a story that you tell about that.
Yes.
For example, a question that many people ask in life, and if you have the wrong perspective, this is a very scary question for you. And that's the question of what if, right? Most people are asking the question, what if, in a negative way. Like, what if it doesn't work out? What if the worst thing happens, right? And they're like, well, I just got to be prepared for the worst. Yeah, you do. It's okay to have that conversation, but you should also be thinking, well, what if the best thing works out? I remember back in November, Nick, you and I were talking, and I was talking with one of my coaching clients, who's a great friend of both of ours, this morning about this, how back in November, go back to November 2022 and how most people were looking at 2023.
Yeah.
A lot of people looking at back in November 2022, I'd be like, man, everything's just going to get worse. Economy's going the wrong direction, COVID, Zeta or whatever.
We'd only had eight rate increases at that point.
Yeah. Whatever, all the, Russia's going to nuke all of us.
Yeah. That was the biggest worry. Remember? We covered that.
Yeah, that's right. That was the biggest
That was
worry.
the biggest worry.
All the things that everyone was so worried about. And as we came to the end of the year, one of the conversations we had and the questions we presented to all of our listeners is like, you can look at your life this way. Are you going to look at all the negative things that can happen? Or for some people, 2023 is going to be the best year of their life so far. Who I was working with this morning, he was at our fire starter event, and he was telling me like the 3 things that were on, like, this is what I'm believing for this year. And they were so huge at the time. And he's about to accomplish the third one. And it's May.
I love that.
Right? And this is the power of perspective. What do you see for your life? What are you looking at the future? And this is based upon who you are. There's a lot of things that build into perspective. It's actually one of the topics that we get into in Mindset Mastery that I really look forward to in the Mindset Mastery, because it's such a difficult, I wouldn't say difficult, it's a complex topic. But perspective is your filter on the world. The way that you look at your life, the way that you look at your marriage, the way that you look at your business, the way you set plans for your business and have a vision, it's all impacted by your perspective.
Yeah.
This lens through which you see the world.
And you know what? We used MJ at the beginning, and it dawned on me while we were talking. What was the perspective MJ had? And it was the famous thing in The Last Dance. People have made many good memes. For me, it became personal, right? And so what that was, and I'm dead serious, that goes back to him. His brother was older and better than him at basketball, and his dad used to show him a little bit more love.
How many people even know his name?
His dad, well, his brother, not nobody,
right?
But the whole point is he developed a perspective then of like, I don't like the way this is going, so I'm going to work my butt off to get there. So when he got cut, what happened? It became personal for him. He locked himself in the gym. So what happened at every stage of Michael Jordan's life? And he says it all the time. Somebody would do something, and what's funny is a lot of times they would say, nobody else remembers that besides Mike. So what he had created? He had created this persona, this perspective of like, people were sliding him, and he had to step up and correct it. And the guy's the greatest basketball player of all time as a result. I mean, so the power of perspective, massive.
There's some negative things too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a good perspective
to his worldview. But the powerful thing, and the thing that we want to point out, is that he saw something that others didn't.
Yes.
Right. And whose perspective is right in any present circumstance? You don't know. Yeah. But what is your perspective? And you need to have a positive perspective. You need to have a Christ-centered perspective. You need to have a powerful perspective on what your future is. Because if you have a negative perspective on the future, you're going to have a negative future.
Yeah, and you gave me a great perspective on running marathons last year. You know, that was what really hit home.
Nobody has anticipated the worst year of their life and had the greatest year of their life.
Yeah, no kidding. Seriously. Okay, well, when we talked about what this episode was about, we talked about 5 questions everyone's answering, and yet we have not given those.
Each one of these pillars, I did allude to one of them. Each one of these pillars has a question.
Yes.
Right? And so the question of purpose, right? God has a plan for your life. Your purpose is the reason that you were created. And I love questions, by the way. This is I'll either talk about this on a Saturday morning sometime, or I have like notes on it. I could turn it into a Bible study. But I love in the Old Testament where God asks questions, right?
You're going to go into Job, aren't you?
Well, that's one. God says to Job, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations?" God says to Adam and Eve, "Who told you you were naked?" God asks questions all throughout the Bible. And God's not asking these questions because he wants to know the answer. He's my favorite question is God's question to Moses, which is Exodus 4:2, where God says, Moses is complaining. Moses doesn't think that, God choosing him is that he's the right guy. And God just said, he's basically like a shut up, Moses.
Right.
And he says to Moses, because he totally changes direction, which I'm going to stop myself from going down another longer rabbit hole.
Episode 52 is, we actually did an episode on questions. I was looking it up just to make sure.
But Exodus 4:2, God says to Moses, "What's in your hand?"
Yeah.
Right? Because Moses is saying like, "Well, I don't have this. I'm not this kind of guy. I don't think I could do it." And God just says, "What's in your hand?" And he's not asking this, which is also the question of purpose, but God's asking this question to Moses, not because God's asking the question to Moses, not because God wants to know the answer. He's saying, Moses, you need to answer this question. I know what's in your hand. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I gave you? Right? And so this is the question of purpose is, who am I?
Yeah.
Right? Who did God make you to be? Which is also saying who am I is very similar to saying what's in your hand.
Yeah.
What are the things that God's given you? Like there's things about us that are all the same, right? But there's also the 1%, like Pastor Keith talks about, that we all have that's different from anybody else. Do you know what that is? Do you know who you are? Because that has a big impact. Like there's a common mission that the Word of God says that we're all called to, but there's also like we're all called to specific dominion. We don't have dominion over the whole earth. not one person does, but you have dominion over an area that God has commissioned you for. You have unique gifts and talents and abilities that God has given to you for the purposes that he has for you, right? He made you this way for a reason. He made you for a reason. He knew you were before you were born, and there is a plan for your life. Are you walking in it? And if you're going to walk in that plan, you need to know who God is, and you need to know who you are. The question of purpose is, who am I?
Yeah. And G, we joked about it. I love what you said about how powerful it is to know who you are. And look what's under attack in our world right now.
Yeah.
There's people that are, we know that gender reassessment and all sorts of identity issues that are popping up where people are identifying themselves completely by their sexuality or, if you want a less controversial one, by their job title. They want to define
themselves not based upon feeling, not based upon truth.
Right.
And it really is building your life on sand.
Yeah. But we're seeing it everywhere. So that question of purpose is a massive one. We joked about it with my phenomenal intro about you being like Willy Wonka. but truthfully, one of the reasons why you're able to have an opinion on so many different things is because you know who you are and you know that's one of the 1% uniqueness that God's given you. And I would agree with that because I've watched you.
You need to not, just give your opinions to everyone all the time. Because in my own maturity, like when I was younger, I didn't know that. And like a lot of people really didn't like me or didn't like all of my opinions. And so like there was this underlying belief that God made me this way for a reason. And if there's people that aren't valuing that, then maybe I'm just bringing my gift to the wrong place.
Right.
But God did give me this, because what I realized as I got older too was like, I am not everyone has an opinion about that.
Yeah.
Right. Like some people are like, whatever. And really, so often, like you ask people, like if you're, for all those out there who are creators and you try to work with their client on their brand, on what their life is about, like so many of them don't know. They just kind of like, well, I like this type of work. That's really all that I know. But what is it that you really want to really have a great opinion on something? Like that's a unique thing that God's given me. Yeah. So all of you have a unique thing that God has given you, many things, right? There's things about you that my mentor, Phil Moss, he says, what's common to you is uncommon to other people.
Very good.
Right? Like, and until you get exposed to yourself a little bit more, you think like, oh, everybody's this way. And then and then I realized like, oh man, like nobody's this way. I'm kind of a weirdo.
But you'll know, like you've talked about winning philosophy before. That was on episode 7. Knew that one from memory. Wow, nice. That's kind of weird. But you've talked about that, and you're saying that in a roundabout way. When you know who you are, you know where you should play, you know what makes you unique, and you start to identify the scenarios that help you win. It is so powerful.
Just to drop that nugget in here, I think it's one of the funnest things. Like if life is hard for you, it's because you're playing the wrong way, right? Like when we were kids, we all have these like made up games. And this is like an example of winning philosophy. We all have these made up games as kids. And if you were like the leader of a group or like you were the leader that day of the game you were playing, sometimes if it's like a made up game, you start to like, as the game goes on, like you make new rules, right? And you're just trying to sometimes, if your friends don't trust you, they think you're just trying to make all the rules to benefit yourself. But also you're trying to like bring more order to the system and create a better game. But also you may create rules that benefit, like your heart may be in the right place. Like, hey, I'm just trying to make a better game. But also you're making rules that are a great game for you.
Yeah.
And life gives us the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Right? Like you get to create the game that you're so great at. Right? And sometimes maybe if you're not producing the value that you feel like you're capable of, it's because you're playing the wrong game.
Yeah. They're very well said. We should probably speed up a little bit.
Move it along.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that one. So the question for beliefs is, what is true?
It is fun to just sometimes we intentionally put a little less structure on this episode.
Correct.
And it is fun to just get in here and talk about some of these things for a little bit.
Yeah, these are the things we talk about all the time, but it's nice to have them grouped like this because these really are pillars. We spent a lot more time fleshing all this out when we originally did it months ago when we were planning Mindset Mastery, but it's cool to be able to present it to you guys.
Yeah, so the question of beliefs, right, is what is true. It's a question you have to answer for yourself. You have to answer for life. Like you need to know what your beliefs are and what are the things that you are saying are true, not the things that are proven.
Right.
Right. That's scientific, that's academic, and we can talk about those things. But what are the things that you say are true?
Yeah, no, agreed. And the leadership question, G, and I also alluded to this, is what is needed? We talked about it being about order. So what is needed? The leader asks in every room that he or she enters into, what is needed in the room?
And also not just what is needed, but who needs me,
yes.
Right? Like we talked about when we were talking about leadership earlier, that when you begin to lead people, you are serving those people and you get to carry weight for those people to help take them to where they need to go. And you guys are doing that together, but it's also who needs me. Like men as leaders of your family needs you, right? And it's also evidence of who, you can go to the leadership podcast. We talk about this one a little bit, but it's evidence of who the leader is. Like if you're looking, man, this is me slapping cement in the face. You need to hear it. If you're looking at your family, looking at your wife or your children, and you're thinking, or hopefully you're not saying it, but even if you're even saying like, you guys aren't providing what I need.
Yeah.
You're probably not the leader in your family that you think you are.
You're definitely not.
Right? If you are the leader in your family, you are the one filling their needs, and you're thinking like, okay, this is what my family needs. More than just them telling me their needs, I know what my family needs.
Yeah.
My family needs me to be a great leader. My family needs me to be a loving father. My wife needs me to be this. My children need me to be this.
Yeah. No, 100%. You know what's interesting, G? We're going to finish these 5 questions because we've got 2 more. Like I said, everyone's answering these questions, right? We're giving an answer from a very impossible life biblical viewpoint of when we're talking about what is needed. A lot of people's what is needed is very much either based on themselves or it's with an end in mind. Like what's needed? What can I do to make money? Like they don't have that leadership thought.
They don't know what their pillars are.
Correct.
And even because these are the pillars for our life. These are the pillars for the impossible life. And we talk about them. We understand what they are. We define them so that we can continue to have a greater level of what the impossible life is. And what the impossible life is it's living out your full purpose. It's becoming everything that God designed you to be. It's living a life so that you get to the end of it and you didn't mess it up, that you didn't mislive your life, that you hear, well done, good and faithful servant. And Nick's exactly right. Everyone answers these questions, but you may not know that these are the pillars that your life is built upon, and you're asking the questions in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and we will spend the rest of our lives continuing to build and strengthen these pillars.
My life's leadership's always going to be a pillar of my life. I may grow. I'm sure I'll grow and mature in what leadership means, but it's still going to be a pillar of my life.
Next question for discipline, and this is one I ask oftentimes when I'm driving and I get lost. What am I doing? And that is, once again, we talked about that discipline is doing what you say you will. That is the question that you're answering. Like, what am I doing? Where does it all tie in? What is my discipline doing for me as far as in my life? What have I said I'm going to do? What is the vision that I've cast that I'm now walking out every single day? What am I doing?
Yeah, discipline is doing what you know to do. So the question of discipline is, what am I doing? When you answer that question, hopefully what you're doing is what you know you're supposed to be doing. It's what you told yourself to be doing. If you are aware of that, if you're asking that question, you are at least aware of the fact that you're either disciplined or undisciplined.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, like I said, they'll be like, what am I doing? And it'll just be like, why am I doing it? That'll be the next question.
You want to get to that place in life where you're asking that question, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You were undisciplined to arrive at that place.
Yeah, 100%. Last question, perspective, and I think you alluded to this one
I
as
did
well.
drop this one earlier, but it's one of my favorite questions. It's the question of what do I see, or what do you see? That is the question of perspective, right? You have a life ahead of you. You have challenges ahead of you. You have a family, a marriage that God's given you, or a future one that's coming for you. Well, or maybe you're not married yet. In all of these situations, what do you see? What is your perspective of the world, right? Because you can see a negative future. You can see a positive future. If we go back 6 months, maybe you saw an incredible 2023. Maybe you saw a horrible year for yourself. Maybe you see your life going one direction. Maybe you see it going in a negative direction. Maybe you see God as this way. Maybe you see God as that way. The question of perspective, which is based upon your beliefs, and you can go to the episode number 23 on perspective where we talk about that. It is one of the most powerful questions that will author the rest of your life is, what do you see?
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap there. So our 5 pillars were purpose, beliefs, leadership, discipline, and perspective.
These are some of the things we will always talk about.
Yeah, and guess what? Mindset Mastery may or may not, it will show you how to apply these things to your life more. And the questions that we said that everybody's answering, but that are tied to each of the pillars. Who am I? What is true? What is needed? What am I doing? And what do I see? G, what do we have for the challenge for people today?
For the challenge today, I'm going to challenge you all. Really, I'll invite you. Just go check out the website and theimpossible.life, and then challenge you to just read through some of the copy that I wrote on the Nick likes my copy.
I do. He has a very funny way of writing. You'll know when Garrett's writing and when I'm writing.
Go read what I wrote on the Mindset Mastery landing page, and maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. If it is for you, I would encourage you and challenge you to and join Nick and I in what we're going to be doing over the next years. But I would challenge you, if you're really ready for growth in your life, I would challenge you that if you want to move at a faster pace and you don't just want to be sitting on the stands, because you can listen. You know what? I've seen people come to the Incubator of Greatness, the place that we call Elevate Life Church. I've seen people come in there. People can listen to this podcast. You can do all these things in your life and just be a spectator and continue to wonder, like, man, why are all the people around me growing and my life's not getting better? Or you can listen to this podcast and grow a lot from it. Mindset Mastery is an opportunity for those of you who are really ready, who are really willing to put in the work and grow, to continue to grow with Nick and I, because I can tell you where my life is going to be a year from now, where my life is going to be 2 years from now. It's going to be an incredible place. I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to level up, and I want to take as many people with me as possible. And Mindset Mastery is an opportunity for you to join Nick and I if you're actually ready for that.
Yeah. One thing we did not mention about Mindset Mastery before we go, and Garrett touched on it right there, we have actually priced this very specifically. So if you go and find a friend to join you, you actually save yourself a substantial amount of money. We're not charging a lot for this anyways, but you actually save a healthy portion for getting somebody to go with you, because the quote that we love is, if you want to go far,
it's like a 35% discount if you do it with a friend.
Yeah. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We want this to be something that you can either form.
You might get to the pricing page and be like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, is that right? Yes, it's right. It's meant to, like, because you can, we're all going to be in the group together, but what we want is, like, you to have a as we called it in the Navy, a swim buddy.
Yeah.
We want you to have a partner, like, hey, we're doing this with a bigger group, but also, like, does me and Nick do this podcast together, and Nick and I have grown so much together in this brotherly process. We want you to have that in the Mindset Mastery program.
Yes.
So if you will bring someone with you as you sign up, it's one person's credit card, it's two people doing it, and you will grow so much better together.
If you're looking to form alignments, what a great way to do it. Go to somebody and say, hey, I want us to do this together.
It's barely more expensive. Just be like James and Peter, and just or be like Peter's brother, and just bring him along. Hey, you're doing this.